say a word, daddy's gonna buy you.
What is going on, guys? This is Justin back here with another video, and today we are going to be reviewing, well, obviously, the new Exorcist movie that came out, The Exorcist Believer. And there's some good things about this movie, then there's some gripes that I have. But one of the good things that came out of this trip to the movies was, I did get the cool saw bucket. So let me show you guys how it looks in the dark. Ooh, that's actually pretty cool. But his eyeballs light up, which is pretty neat. I like that a lot. So I still have yet to see Saw X, but I do plan on seeing it. But like I said, today we're going to be reviewing the new Exorcist movie. So let's get right into that. So I kind of had not really high hopes for this movie. I kind of expected it to be just another demonic possession movie, just like the Conjuring movies and everything. But the way this movie started out, they started out in I believe it was France. I'm not too sure. I'll have to if I find out what it is, I'll put it right here. But they started out in a foreign country. You get introduced to the main girl, Angela's parents. The guy that plays Angela's dad, Liam something, he is really good at what he does in this movie. Especially like acting like he's like really caring for the daughter and everything. But we eventually meet them, and there's an earthquake that happens. The dad's away and the mom's in the room, and the mom ends up dying. So the dad has a choice to save his wife or the daughter, and eventually that choice will come up later in the movie, as you guys seen in the trailers. But we don't know who he chooses, and it just fast forwards to the dad and the daughter. So you just automatically assume he chooses his daughter, right? Well, when we get to the dad and the daughter in present time, we find out that the daughter is obviously going to school, and she has a friend named Catherine, which is the girl she's with in the movie. So they go out to the woods because Angela finds out about her mom, and obviously she wants to talk to her. So they do this kind of like Ouija board thing, but it's not really a Ouija board, if you know what I mean. It's like these crystals or whatever that you dangle around. You try to talk to people, and she tried to talk to her mom, but obviously she didn't talk to her mom, and they go missing, just like out of nowhere. And eventually, 3 days later, they get found inside a farm, which is weird, because they go into the woods, do some kind of like a Ouija board thing, and then they end up in a farm. It's very weird. But then, this is where I liked the movie at this point, because it seemed like they were doing their own thing. Like, eventually they do end up going back to their parents, and you could see like the demonic possession happening. Like, they would just pop up out of nowhere and give you a good scare, and they'll just sit there and like stare at the walls. And eventually they end up taking their daughters back to the hospital, and they find out what is happening to them. And the dad, he's not a real big believer in God and anything and everything, but he has this neighbor that works at the hospital, and he asked her, like, you ever seen anything like this? And she says, no, I haven't, but this lady that wrote this book has. And she gives them the book, and it's Reagan McNeil's book, not Reagan, Chris McNeil's book from the first Exorcist. And when they brought Chris McNeil into the mix, that's kind of like where the whole movie went downhill for me. Because Chris McNeil was supposed to be the Laurie Strode of this movie, as you guys know. And she meets She meets Angela. And that's just like, oh yeah, I know you, you know me. Well, then eventually she goes and she meets Catherine. And the Catherine part is so weird. Like, they give no context to Catherine whatsoever. So, like, in the movie, we mainly focus on Angela and her dad, but we get no like storyline of what's happening with Catherine and her family. So I think the only part we get with Catherine and her family after they get back together was the body and the blood part at church, which that part was nerve-wracking. So then Angela's dad and Chris McNeil, they go to Catherine's house because they think they found a way to heal these girls. Well, Chris McNeil goes up there, and Angela's sitting down there. She's like, oh, you know who I am, I know who you are, this, that, and her daughter starts talking about Reagan, saying, like, she burns in hell, and trying to basically convince Chris that Reagan's dead. Well, Chris, she's saying, like, she studied this stuff for a long time after what happened with Reagan, and she knows how to fight it off. Well, she's fighting it off, but then the girl jumps up, grabs a crucifix, and stabs Reagan. I keep getting them mixed up. She stabs Chris in both her eyeballs. So that part, I was like, okay, this is dumb. Like, why would you bring her back just for that to happen? So eventually we fast forward through that. She's in the hospital, and the girls, they get taken out of the psychiatric hospital, and they're brought back to Angela's dad's house. And Angela's dad, he's starting to be a big believer in God and everything. And what happens is he gathers these people that the only 4 people you honestly know in this whole scene are Angela's dad, Catherine's mom and dad, and the neighbor next door that works at the hospital. The rest of these people are just thrown into the mix. Like, cool, nice to meet you. Don't know what's happening with you. But they all try using these like different methods, which I thought was pretty cool, because obviously every religious brand has their beliefs and different beliefs of how to like cast demons back to hell and stuff like that. Well, I thought it was cool seeing them like work all their magic trying to get it done, and then eventually a priest comes in and he tries to help out with it too. But this is where you get the iconic head turning scene, except it was CGI and didn't even really look that real. I mean, it looked decent, but it didn't look that real. But if you're gonna do a head turning scene, at least do what they did in the first one and do it with prosthetics. That would have been cool. But eventually after that happens with the priest, the girls sit there and they start laughing, and you hear God played a trick on you. And this is where Angela's talking to her dad, and you find out that in the scene from the beginning of the movie where Angela's dad was put with that question of, do you want to save your wife or your daughter? Well, it shows that Angela's dad actually chose to save his wife, and his wife died and he got his daughter. And then the daughter starts screaming and crying like, you didn't want me, you didn't want me, you didn't even want anything to do with me, you wanted my mom over me. Like, it's just a complete thing. And then they get the choice of one girl lives and one girl dies. So at first Angela's dad says he's not choosing, and Catherine's mom says she's not choosing, and Catherine's dad's just sitting in the kitchen not doing anything. Like, I get how that would be scary, but he has nothing to do with this whole scene whatsoever. And then he yells, I choose you, Catherine, thinking that he's going to save his daughter, but in reality, he chose his daughter to die. So, yeah, that part was insane as well. It's like, meeting this guy in the beginning of the movie, I already knew instantly he was going to mess everything up. Just the vibes he gave off. It was very insane. But, yeah, then we're at the end of the movie. Ellen Bernstein, Chris McNeil, she's in the hospital, and she's, like, doing some weird stuff, like, like, making her hands go like this, and, she's connected to those girls. And then, with Ellen Bernstein being in the hospital with her blind eyes, that's where, this is actually probably the only cool part of the movie. Linda Blair comes in for a cameo, which hopefully she's in the next 2 movies. which I don't see what they would do with that, because it can't be like Lori versus Michael. Is it going to be her versus the little girl for stabbing her mom in the eyes? Who knows? But yeah, The Exorcist Believer, I would give it, this is being kind, a 7 out of 10. Because the prosthetics scared me. I mean, it did have some good scares in it, but there was really no storyline in the whole thing. Once we got to the Christopher McNeil part, just felt rushed. Like, we really, really rushed. But still a decent movie. I'll give it a solid 7 out of 10. Had some good scares, good makeup, props and everything were good. And yeah, that's my review for The Exorcist Believer. So as always, you guys, stay groovy, stay safe, and keep your people safe. And please, guys, always remember, God is good all the time. You guys have a good one. Stay safe out there. It's been Justin, and I'm out.
Peace.